Hello and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing. So let's talk about the Brian Norman-Devin Haney fight. Now going into this fight, I'll be honest, weeks out from the fight, I kind of edged Norman in this one. But as it got closer, I did have a bit of a sneaking feeling that Devin Haney had quite a good chance in this fight. And it was one of those where it was a quintessential 50-50 in the eyes of the public. But in my eyes, it wasn't a 50-50. And allow me to explain what I mean by that, because I sound like I've just contradicted myself massively. You get these fights that are 50-50 on paper, but you know, say for example, you're an in-play betting man. This is the kind of fight you want to look at because yes, it's 50-50 on paper, but it's 50-50 because we don't really know how it's going to gel. Once they're in there, within 2 or 3 rounds, you are going to know who's going to win the fight. It's one of those ones. It was either going to go in there and Brian Norman was going to start hurting Haney. Haney was going to look rocked and scared, and you're thinking, right, it's a matter of time. Or Haney was going to go in there, superior boxing, and just piece up Brian Norman Jr. Which of them was it? Well, we kind of got an answer. And in the second round, Devin Haney hurts and knocks down Brian Norman Jr. Now, the opening round was, not a lot was happening. Brian Norman was a little bit more active. I have to say, Devin Haney, yet again, coming off the back of his last fight where he looked terrified to get hit against the corpse of Ramirez. A lot of us were thinking, well, in this fight against a guy who does look like he's punching harder, who does look, you know, relatively good now. Yes, Brian Norman's untested, and yes, he's only been in there against, you know, the Jin Sasakis of the world. You know, these aren't great fighters, but he looks like he can punch hard. He looks like, you know, he's got decent boxing fundamentals as well. This might not be straightforward. But in that second round, it was a left hook to break the guard from Haney and then a straight right hand, and it sent Norman tumbling down, and Norman was badly hurt, and against a puncher in Haney who is not really a puncher. Yes, I'm sure he's sort of punching a bit harder now, he's not as drained down from 135, but Devin Haney is not a puncher, folks, and to be getting dropped like that and to be getting hurt like that, Now, in the lead up to this fight, there had been some rumours coming out of the American gyms, some whispers that I'd heard, that Brian Norman Jr. had a glass jaw and could not hold a shot particularly well. That was the whisper on the grapevine in the lead up to this fight. But I think it's fair to say Devin Haney doesn't hold the best shot either. But I think we saw that in this fight. After the first round, Devin Haney looked shook to bits in the first round. He still looked nervous, like we'd seen in recent performances. But as soon as he knocked down Brian Norman Jr., it was a complete role reversal. Brian Norman looked shook from the second round onwards. He kind of eased back into the third round and kind of just found his foot in and sort of got through the third. But from there on in, Brian Norman Jr. looked shook to get hit. He didn't look like he really wanted to push the envelope as far as the fight was concerned. And Devin Haney was just content to sit back, box, you know, the jab, the right hand, and just do what Devin Haney does. But I have to say, this was the most confident I'd seen Haney look. As soon as he realised he could hurt Norman Jr., and as soon as he realised that Norman was shook, he just kind of put a bit of a low-key beating on Brian Norman Jr., I have to say. And look, I'm someone who's massively critical of Devin Haney. I find his father to be really just odious, and I find him very difficult to watch. I find Devin Haney as a person, to be honest, not very likeable at all, and I find his style generally really unlikable as well, this sort of hit it and hop it style. But I have to say, in this fight, I was impressed by Haney. He mixed it up a bit more. Yes, he was still holding whenever anyone tried to get on the inside and that kind of thing. He clearly is still a little bit, you know, he does not like inside fighting, Devin Haney. Whenever Brian Norman did try to fight on the inside, he just held. But Brian Norman was too messy on the inside, and his work wasn't clean enough anyway. So that's why he was, you know, getting clinched as much as he was. So it was a strange fight. As soon as that second round was done, Brian Norman was just in his box, and he just didn't have the offense needed from a creative point of view to question Devin Haney. Devin Haney was still there with the low lead hand, completely wide open as well to the left hook, still not covering up that chin on the left-hand side. And Brian Norman spotted that, and Brian Norman has a good left hook, but he had this really weird game plan where for the entirety of the fight, he was just looking to land a single bolo kind of looping left hook that was so telegraphed. You know, I was stood there watching on the TV, and I was like, right, he's going to throw it now. He threw it. Okay, he's looking for it again. He's looking for it. And it would literally be the one shot that Brian Norman was looking for all night. It was literally a case of no right hand, no jab, no right hook, no uppercut, just try and spam the left hook that Garcia had so much success against Haney with constantly, and make it very obvious that's what you're doing. And Haney just read it all night. And then that was really the fight itself. There wasn't really anything else to report. It was just Brian Norman Jr. with the most uncreative offense you've ever seen, looking for one shot that he was telegraphing, and looked terrified to really push the envelope too far because, you know, he knew he could be hurt. And so, as I say, Devin Haney just kind of put a bit of a low-key beating on Norman and just won on points. So where do both guys go from here? I think Brian Norman Jr., look, the jury was out on Norman. How good is he? I think we now have the answer. Not great, to be honest. It was okay, you know, in spots, but I think we now know that Brian Norman Jr., had he had that Boots Ennis fight, he would have got chewed up and spat out in a couple of rounds. That would not have been a competitive fight. As far as Devin Haney's concerned, I think Undisputed is on for him at 147. 147 is the weakest it has been in generations, not in years, not in decades, in generations. This 147 division is honking. I mean, when you look at who the champions are, I mean, you have Barrios, you have Rowley, I mean, you have, oh Christ, oh, what's his name? The Irish fighter whose name has completely escaped me. You know exactly who I mean. He is now a world champion, the one who beat Paddy Don, Lewis Crocker. Lewis Crocker is a world champion. I mean, all three of those guys are, these are not good world champions at all. These are kind of, if you had to rank them in terms of like levels over here, you would say these are kind of European level fighters at best. So maybe even fringe European, and yet they're all holding world titles. So look, it's an open door for Devin Haney to go and clean up as far as I'm concerned. Garcia may well be fighting Rowley, apparently. And I think you've also got Conor Benn, who's going to be sniffing around those belts as well, probably trying to take on a Barrios. But even if Garcia and Conor Benn pick up a belt, I'd probably make Devin Haney a favourite against both of those. Yes, of course, the Garcia fight, we've already seen it, and Garcia had an absolute beatdown on Devin Haney. But Garcia blows so hot and cold. He's so fragile up here that I can't trust Garcia, to be honest with you. And yeah, against Conor Benn, I think Conor Benn would just get picked apart by Devin Haney, to be honest with you. I don't think he's got the... Again, I think his offense is probably more creative than we saw from Norman's here, but I don't necessarily think Conor Benn has what it takes to beat Devin Haney from a boxing point of view. And it has to be said, what has Conor Benn lost from going up in weight 2 divisions and dropping back down? We've never seen that end well. I can't really think of a moment in recorded sort of recent history in boxing where a fighter's moved up 1-2 divisions, come back down, and hasn't looked a bit of a spent force. So I think the jury's out in that regard as well. But you let me know what you think. I think Devin Haney now, the doors are kind of open for him at 147, and he should probably clean up from here. But you let me know what you think. I'd be interested to know. What do you think of this fight as well? What do you think next for Norman? And yeah, be interested to know. Take it easy, guys. Cheers.